Greetings, Illumineers! DLC season is back upon us, and not only that, but it feels like every other weekend we're tripping over 1Ks and 5Ks and 10Ks or CCQs, even our own events from recently. But beyond just the return of DLCs, we have the release of Fabled and the rotation of sets 1 through 4, giving us a huge surge in competitive play for Disney Lorcana. And you know what that means? More and more players will be going to their first big competitive event. In addition to some reminder tips and tricks for veteran TCG players, this video will serve as an introductive look into the proper prior planning to prevent poor performances and precarious predicaments as you participate in competitive pageantry for potential prestigious prizing. Or in other words, be prepared for your next big event. Here, I'll talk about a variety of things you can do or consider when planning and preparing for your next event. Everything from choosing your deck and testing it out, to dealing with the logistics of the day, the gameplay tips, and the overall mindset. The goal here is to give players a good idea of what to expect when you're entering a large tournament in order to prevent burnout, prevent frustration, or otherwise souring what should be and would be a big fun experience for a game that you love. While writing this in the fall of 2025, Fabled has just released, but the topics presented here will be universally applicable to any time or any meta in Lorcana, but also any TCG as a whole, at least to my best understanding of other TCGs I know or follow. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So, part one is picking a deck. Now, you got to think about what is good. What are you going to choose? You have to think about, are there decks performing good at recent events? Are you going to use that as part of your choice in deciding what you want to do? Are you going to do something that is safe and reliable, or are you going to risk something innovative, something new, something different? Are you going to pick up something to specifically beat the things that are safe and reliable? You have to think about mental strain. How much thought process are you going to want to do? Do you want to play a complex convoluted control deck where you have to put a bunch of thoughts into every single turn, or do you want to just play a bunch of guys and turn them sideways? Not to say that those types of decks aren't necessarily complicated to fine-tune them, but the floor and ceiling differences are very different between those, and some require a lot more thought every single round and give you a lot fewer free wins. Do you have a pet deck? A deck that you really just enjoy and are really good at? That can be something to give you an advantage because you have so much time and effort into that particular kind of deck. Are you going to run a stock list, or perhaps tech it out with some specific things, specific cards or choices or colors to choose to give yourself an edge against the perceived meta? Once you pick a deck, you have to test it. You have to play test this things out. You really want to get in as many reps as you can with the deck so that you are as comfortable as possible in any situation when you are playing with that deck. So you want to decide as early as possible and then commit to learning it as much as you can. Now, if you have a group, organize, work together. You really want to plan to meet together either in person or online in some way where you can provide feedback to each other and discuss kind of like what's the play. You can watch each other play, give feedback, and then you can use that feedback to help learn and grow how that deck might work. More minds are going to come up with more options than just one, and being able to see or bounce ideas off of people and hear other people's perspectives are going to help really grow your understanding of that deck, its process, and its matchups. And if you don't have everything, you can always make proxies or use digital simulators. There's a bunch of different options for both of those, and all of them provide great opportunities for you to be able to express those ideas and test those ideas out in any of those situations. But when you are testing, you want to test with a purpose. So are you testing a tech card? Make sure to start with that card in your hand. Pull it out of your deck. If you're playing with proxies, put it in your hand and start with it. Is it going to be as good as you expect it to be? Is it going to do everything you need it to do? Do you have a specific matchup? Well, play against that matchup and give them the optimal opening 7. Can you beat that? And if not, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to concede that matchup or try to beat it? That's the only way to see is against the ideal situation, are you able to prevail? And if not, you have to either concede and work on something else, shore up some other matchups, or figure out a way to fight that perfect draw. When you're doing this, play open-handed so you can discuss lines of play each turn with you and your opponent, who's not really your opponent, they're really your partner who's helping you out. And then while you're doing this, track or take notes of anything that's relevant. You want to make sure that if there's interactions that come up, that you're relying on your testing partners and your notes to learn and memorize all of these different things so you can help prepare for when you see them in your event. You don't have to sit and tank about it. This is things you've seen before. These are things that you're familiar with. These are things that you already know how to handle because you've discussed them with your testing group. So you want to learn and memorize all of your matchups. You want to build a really good understanding for your alters, more specifically, your key cards and the key game plan for what you want to do on the play and on the draw. You've got card choices versus a known opponent or an unknown. What you keep in the blind is going to be different than what you do against, say, a specific aggro deck or a specific slow control deck or specific matchups. Whether you're on the play or the draw matters if you're drawing that extra card or if you need to be the aggressor or if you're going to be more of a control role. All of those things are going to be relevant. You really want to identify any of those meta decks. You want to make sure that you're planning for all the things that you expect to see, and you want to have that plan for them so that when you see them, you're not caught off guard. And then you basically want to plan out your optimal turns. If I have these cards in hand, then what is the best thing that I can do? What are the best choices that I can make? What are the best cards that I want to have? So besides just planning your deck and preparing for your deck, it's all about the event itself. And a lot of this is where people get a little bit caught unaware, not quite used to. And the biggest thing that I can say is just have a good dinner, have a good night's sleep, and have a good breakfast for the day of, because your brain needs a lot of calories to function properly. You need to be well rested, well fed, and you want to go in with the mindset of I've got a bunch of energy and I've got a bunch of feeling well. I'm well rested and I'm going to do great in this event. You definitely want to make sure that you are at your full capacity. You're not groggy, you're not tired, you're not sleep deprived, and you're well fed. Speaking of which, for getting a good night's sleep, get there early. You want to make sure that you're there early for check-in or players meetings or any last things that you need to do before the first round starts. The last thing you want is to start your day with a game loss, or even worse, a round loss. And part of that is having your deck list filled out and printed ahead of time. You don't want to be scrambling to make final changes or risk getting deck checked and having something not match. And depending on the egregiousness of the error, that could be anywhere from a warning to a disqualification. It's not something worth risking. So be precise and don't do this last minute. If you do happen to make a last minute change, make sure that change is reflected in the deck list that you are submitting to the tournament organizer. Pack quality snacks and water. When I say quality snacks, my favorite things are always things like peanut butter and jelly, trail mix, beef jerky, or anything that is filling and has a lot of protein, things that are going to fill your body and your soul and your brain. You may not have time between rounds for a very full meal, so you want to have something that you can eat to keep yourself filled with energy, filled with the ability to last 6, 7, 8 hours, 9 hours or more in a single day. If you're doing a 9-round day and it's an hour per round, that's a minimum of 9 hours, assuming that no round goes to time. And so you don't want to be low on energy, but you also, if you're a coffee drinker or an energy drink enjoyer, just have as much as you normally do and don't overdo it, because you also, you want to have energy, but you don't want to overdo it and be jittery and lose focused. It is going to be a very long day. And last one here is, if you are prone to headaches or you just have something that might help you, like Tylenol, ibuprofen, whatever you have for your mental stress, it is going to be a long, mentally stressful day for hours and hours and hours. So just pack and plan accordingly. All right, so logistics of each round. This is like when you're actually playing. You're seated and you're with your first round opponent. What are you going to do? The first thing is to decide who goes first randomly. Now, you all have seen, well, I hope you all watch my videos, and you notice I use rock, paper, scissors to go first. And some may not like that, but there's a specific reason why I do that. And a lot of times if you're doing dice rolls, if you're doing a high dice roll, you can tie. And I don't really like tying, and I think it's a waste of time, and I think it just takes longer. I want something that decides something every single time. And if rock, paper, scissors isn't necessarily your thing, then odds or evens is always a good choice. You give the opponent a choice, choose odds or evens. You roll a single dice, and if it matches their choice, they go first. Easy, quick, to the point. You just don't want to be wasting time spending 30 seconds, 40 seconds, a minute deciding who goes first when you can do it in 5 seconds. The next big thing is that don't pile shuffle your deck. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't randomize your deck. It just redistributes things through specific patterns, but it doesn't do anything other than waste time. If you can mass shuffle your deck, just do that. If you do, I believe, 7 shuffles mathematically should randomize your deck sufficiently. And anything more than that is just gravy on top. So just make sure that when you're shuffling, just regular mass shuffle or riffle shuffle or whatever you're doing to shuffle to randomize, but do it without wasting time. And don't be afraid that when you present your deck to the opponent to cut or shuffle, don't be afraid to shuffle their deck. That is within your rights to do. When your opponent presents the deck to you, you can shuffle it or you can just cut it. If it's at a big competitive event, I will almost always choose to shuffle it. Just give it 1 or 2 quick shuffles and then cut it and hand it right back. And then just also be mindful of your opponents and their actions. Just watch what they're doing and just be mindful. You don't need to be accusatory in any way, but just be careful if someone's sliding a card to the top or something like that. You just want to make sure everything's on the up and up, especially if you're playing a 2,000 person event for a very, very, very big prize. Just be careful. And then one last thing here is that the player going first declares their altar first. So if they are deciding what they're going to do and you've already decided, you're like, I'm going to snap keep 7, or I'm shipping them all, or maybe I do 1 or 2. If you are going second, if you're on the draw and they are going first, let them make their decision first, because if you snap keep 7, that gives them valuable information that may change how they are keeping or sending back some of their cards. So just another thing to keep in mind. All right, now once you're playing, don't be afraid to call a judge. Do not be afraid to call a judge. If you feel you need a judge, call one. Raise your hand real loud and yell judge, and keep your hand up until they arrive. If someone hears judge and they don't know where you're going, they're going to be looking for someone with their hand up. If you put your hand down, they're going to think that the situation is taken care of and they're not needed anymore. So if you need a judge, raise your hand, keep it up until they arrive and they talk to you. Now, you call a judge under any circumstance that you feel you need clarification. So anything like misrepresentations of board state, or an incorrect use of a card ability, or even just a careless error or mistake. Even if it's your own error or mistake, the goal here is that they are here to maintain game integrity, and they want to make sure that all of the actions are properly being taken, all the game states are properly represented, and they are here to maintain legitimacy to the game, the sanctity of the game. And so they're not here to ruin your day. They're not here to catch people off guard. They're here to make sure that the game is being played as fairly and consistently as possible. With that in mind, while you are talking to a judge, do not disrupt the board state or your hands. Leave them as is. Set your hand down separately from everything else. Don't touch anything, and let everything stay exactly as it is so that you can explain it properly to the judge when they get there. So when the judge is there, please speak in turn. Don't interrupt them. Don't interrupt them or your opponent if either of you is speaking. If you need to speak privately, step away from the table and do so there. Stay calm and be honest, even if it is your error, because if you are caught lying is considered cheating. So if you are misrepresenting things to the judge and that is then found out, you could be given a game loss, disqualification. All of those are going to be based on the severity of the situation and what the rule book actually says for results. And then when you're all done, accept the judge's ruling. But if you think that the judge got it wrong and they made some sort of mistake, you can always appeal to a head judge, but don't use that as a catch-all just because you don't like the outcome, only if you believe the ruling was incorrect. And so otherwise you should really accept their ruling and move on. Don't let it get to you, and don't let it ruin your day. It is going to happen. Referees are going to make calls that you may not agree with. You take it in stride and you move on. All right, some of the gameplay. Every turn, ink your card face up, face up. Leave it face up so that is a reminder that you have inked for the turn. It'll help make sure that you are not double inking for turn, or that you don't forget to ink for turn. Now, if you notice, there's a little asterisk there. That is if you are doing an effect like Tipo where it puts an ink face down. Obviously, that's not the case. Maybe set it aside or somewhere else. But for the most part, just make sure that if you are inking using your ink for the turn, leave it face up as a reminder. Same thing for if you're going to do sail or anything else that does additional inks face up, leave them face up as a reminder. Turn them down at the end of your turn. Speaking of end of turn, while it is not your turn, think about what you are doing on your next turn, because there are no interactions that you can take while it is your opponent's turn. So you should be using that time valuably, using that valuable time to think about what do you want to do next. Because when it gets to your turn, you want to be decisive. If you have a line of something to do, pick it and stick to it. Because if you're waffling between different types of plans, you might end up not being really committed to either of them. Early on, when there was a lot of different shift choices, if you pick a shift target and a shiftable card, you're committed to that line, and you don't want to just play one and then ink another one. So just be mindful of what it is your next turns are, be decisive, pick a line, and stick to it. Anticipate your opponent's plays. What are they doing? How much ink will they have on the next turn? Do they have any shift targets? Do they have potential removal that they could use on your stuff, or any challenges? How will they react to the things that you play? How are they going to interact with the things that you have? All of these things are things you want to think about while it is the opponent's turn, so that when it's your turn, you can be quick, be decisive, and get in, get out. If you are playing your turns quickly as well, it sometimes unsettles opponents because it feels like you're way over prepared while they're taking their time to think. And so if you are able to think and prepare on the opponent's turn, it gives you that advantage. Now, you do draw a card at the beginning of your turn, which may change your plans, but for the most part, have a game plan of what do you want to do so that you can execute that game plan as quickly and efficiently as possible. Because this is our next big thing, which is clock management. So be mindful of the round timer, especially if you're playing a deck that does not necessarily win quickly, because those early turns need to be quick. Save your tanking turns for way later on, because the last thing you want is to go to time and turns and end up in a draw. A draw is basically as good as a loss in most big tournaments. So you really, really want to avoid taking a draw, especially in early rounds. You want to be quick, be decisive, and like those earlier tips will help you be mindful of that. Just keep an eye on the clock. If there's a visible clock, make sure to keep an eye on it. If not, and you're wearing a watch, just take a look at what time it is and just mentally keep track of how much time you have left. Because that goes into this big one, which is a lot of mistakes that a lot of people make, which is not knowing when to concede. You only have so much time, and the ability to get through all 3 games, if you're going through 3 games in a best of 3 format, is not necessarily possible in the time given for certain decks, especially if they are played completely to conclusion. There's nothing wrong with conceding. There's nothing wrong with saying, I am beat, I am lost, there's nothing meaningful I can do, or the win percentage that I have, the possibility that I have to win is so small that it is to my benefit to concede this game and go to the next one and take my chances in game 2 or game 3 than it is to try to eke out a most likely loss anyway in this game. If your chances to win are 5, 10% or less, cut your losses, go to the next game and try it in game 2 or 3 now that you're on the play. All right, next is reading the opponent. And this one's a little bit harder for some people to do, but some things to look for is to look out for body language. What is it that they are doing? Are they looking through their discard? Are they immediately inking the card that they just drew? Do they feel calm? Do they feel confident? Do they feel uneasy or frustrated? You can try to read these opponents and the emotions that they have and try to anticipate what it is they're doing. What are the things that they're looking at? Where are their eyes? Where are their hands? Are they looking at their cards? Are they looking at a particular card? Are they looking at your stuff? Are they looking at a particular thing on your field? Those little things give you clues as to what they might be thinking or doing. Are they counting their ink? Are they separating it into certain piles? Are those piles in certain amount of numbers? Are those going to indicate what they may or may not want to play? And if they don't play it, do they still have that in their hand? However, better opponents are going to be aware of that, though. These are called tells, and better opponents are going to be aware of that, and they will either hide these tells or they may specifically and purposely misrepresent or bluff these tells, which might even make things harder if you're looking for these things. So just whatever you're looking for in an opponent, be cautious and use a healthy amount of skepticism for any of these kind of vibes-based observations. But the most important thing here, the most important thing of all, is why are you here? Know what you are doing here. Know why you're there. You likely paid a good amount of money and possibly traveled a decent amount of distance to be at this event. What are your personal goals? Whatever they are, just be honest with yourself to avoid the dangerous combination of burnout and disappointment. Now, I know me personally, I'm going to the upcoming DLC in Milwaukee, and I have a goal of doing the best I can, but even if I end up the first day with a positive record, I'll see that as a success. I know many players are going there with the intention of winning a Golden Mickey or a Nationals invite or taking the whole thing. And I know a lot of players personally who are fully capable of doing that. And I also know I'm probably not one of those players unless the stars align and I get a ton of favorable matchups and lucky dice rolls. Maybe you're there for the experience to see other prominent players or artists or content creators and online personalities or Ravensburger representatives. Maybe the main competition is a secondary, happy additional thing to a trip based around casual play or collecting or just mingling with other people. Maybe you're there to play one of the many side events that you can in order to farm tickets to get cool stuff from the prize wall. The point here is there's no wrong answer as to why you're going to the event. You just need to be clear with yourself what your goal is and plan accordingly, because some goals are going to require a lot more planning and forethought than others. And the last thing you want to do is to leave an event frustrated and disappointed. Anyway, where are you going next? Are you going to attend a big tournament or event soon? Drop a comment below here and share. I'll be at DLC Milwaukee this October, and I hope to see many of my fellow Illumineers there. Hopefully these topics will be at least some help to you or your TCG friends, and although I'm using Lorcana as the basis for examples, these are by no means exclusive to any one game. So most of the general and overarching ideas are good and helpful for any big TCG tournament or any event that you're going to. So grab your deck, shuffle up, stay questing, and stay winning. If you enjoyed that, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you want more gameplay or breakdown videos, check out the playlist and recommendations here.